Leonardo da Vinci wrote his most private thoughts in a secret mirror code that was impossible to read at a glance. He was designing flying machines and robotic knights, while everyone else still struggled with basic anatomy. In 1482, he starts filling thousands of pages with ideas that look like complete gibberish unless you hold them up to a mirror. But how did that even happen? Welcome to History Bites, where we take the wildest, weirdest, most jaw-dropping moments in history and explain them fast. If you love the kind of history that sounds impossible but actually happened, subscribe. The year is 1482. This is roughly 500 years before your great-great-grandparents were born. Europe is in the middle of the Renaissance, a time when people are starting to care about art and science again. But don't get it twisted. Most people still believe that if you have a headache, it is because your blood is angry. Imagine living in a city where the most high-tech thing you own is a heavy wool coat, yet one man in a workshop is drawing blueprints for a mechanical tank. Most people don't know this part, but Leonardo wasn't a scientist with a degree or a fancy lab. He was a guy who never went to a university. He was a self-taught dreamer who looked at a bird and wondered why humans were stuck on the ground. There is one secret hidden in his notebooks that explains why he was so far ahead of everyone else. I'll get to it. Leonardo is left-handed. In the 1400s, being left-handed is often seen as suspicious. Some people even call it the mark of the devil. But Leonardo doesn't care about what's popular. He writes from the right side of the page to the left. His letters are flipped. If you try to read it normally, it looks like a foreign language from a different dimension. Stop and think about that for a second. Every single note he takes on science, math, and engineering is encrypted. Some historians think he did this to hide his ideas from the Roman Catholic Church, which was very strict about what people could study. Others think he was trying to prevent other inventors from stealing his work. That is the 15th century version of putting a 20-character password on your laptop. Here's the part nobody puts in textbooks. He could actually write with one hand and draw a masterpiece with the other at the same time. He was a master of multitasking before the word even existed. Leonardo's notebooks are like a messy desktop folder from the year 1500. One page has a sketch of a human heart. The next has a design for a giant crossbow the size of a house. He designs a fighting vehicle that looks like a giant turtle with cannons sticking out of every side. This is 400 years before the first tank rolls onto a battlefield in World War I. He even draws a robotic knight that can sit up and move its arms using a complex system of pulleys and gears. Imagine your school had a rule that you could only use tools from the ancient past, but you somehow showed up with a 3D printer. That is how Leonardo lived every day. He was obsessed with how things worked. He would go to the local market, buy caged birds, and then set them free just to watch exactly how their wings moved in the first 3 seconds of flight. Now this is where history gets genuinely strange. Leonardo was a celebrity, but he had a reputation for being a procrastinator. He spent years on a single painting. He would get distracted by the way light hits a leaf or how water swirls around a rock. He was a perfectionist who rarely finished anything. He wrote a letter to the Duke of Milan in 1482, basically a 15th century resume, promising he could build portable bridges, armored cars, and indestructible ships. And the craziest thing, it actually worked. The Duke hired him, not for his art, but as a military engineer. But while he was supposed to be building weapons, he was secretly filling his notebooks with things the Duke would never understand. Leonardo is obsessed with the idea of humans in the sky. He spends hours watching bats. He calculates the weight of a human versus the surface area of a wing. He designs the ornithopter. It is a machine where the pilot lays down and flaps giant mechanical wings using their legs. It looks like something out of a modern superhero movie. He also draws a flying screw. This is the ancestor of the modern helicopter. He understands that if you spin a blade fast enough, it creates lift. But there is a huge problem. There are no engines in the year 1500. He has the blueprints for the future, but he is trapped in a world powered by horses and wind. It is like having the code for a high-end video game, but only owning a calculator to run it on. By the way, here is a curious fact. Despite what you see in movies, Vikings didn't actually have horns on their helmets. Leonardo probably would have found that design choice very aerodynamically dumb. There is one part of this story that historians still argue about. For centuries, people thought Leonardo's mirror writing was a high-level spy code to protect his forbidden scientific discoveries. But modern researchers found something even more interesting. Leonardo was likely dyslexic. Writing backward wasn't a spy tactic. It was how his brain naturally processed information. Because he was left-handed, writing from right to left meant he didn't smudge the wet ink with his hand as he moved across the page. The secret code was his natural handwriting. And here is where it gets really wild. Because he processed the world differently, he saw patterns that no one else noticed. He realized the heart has 4 chambers when everyone else thought it had 2. He figured out why the sky is blue centuries before anyone else. He wasn't trying to be mysterious. He was seeing a reality that wouldn't be discovered for another 300 years. Leonardo died in 1519. His notebooks were scattered and lost for a long time. If they had been published immediately, the scientific revolution might have happened 200 years earlier. We might have had airplanes in the 1700s. Instead, his secret writing kept his ideas locked away until long after he was gone. Leonardo da Vinci proves that being different isn't a mistake, it's a superpower. His weird way of writing and his distracted mind changed the way we understand the human body and the very idea of what is possible. History is full of moments that sound impossible, but every single one of them actually happened. That's what makes it better than fiction. Subscribe if you want more stories like this. We post every week, and every video will teach you something your history teacher hasn't mentioned yet. And drop your answer in the comments. If you could have one of Leonardo's inventions today, would you pick the robotic knight or the turtle tank? One man in the 1500s saw the future in a mirror, and we are still catching up to him today.